everybody has this idea somehow that their practice is inadequate. And I think you're right that no matter, that it's important to do something, just to make a commitment to do something. I think you're exactly right that it's important to more or less lay it out beforehand, and then stick to it. There's this phrase you may have heard in our teaching in our school. You have the head of a dragon and the tail of a snake. This, oh, I'm so strong, I'm going to do this. And maybe a day or two you do it, maybe a week or a month. And then, gradually. Yeah, you skip it, it wears away, you don't do it, and then you feel bad. And then maybe you stop practicing altogether. So I think you're exactly right. Every day, do something, do at least something. And don't judge it. I think that's very important. Don't judge it, don't judge yourself. Because what you're really doing is setting yourself up there for failure almost. It's like if you're judging it, you're assuming there's something out there that's better than what you're doing. And somehow you're not going to reach it. You're not going to be able to do it. And you're just a failure if you can't do that. And that's pretty corrosive to all of us. So it is really important to do something every day and stick to what you say you're going to do. That's going to help you. That's not a burden imposed upon you. That's really going to help you in this life, in this world. But more important than all of that is, why would we do any of this? Why do that? Why touch the Dharma every day? And if you've been around the quantum school of Zen very long, it's not for me. And that just becomes rote after a while, for us, not for me, not for me. We're always hearing that. But that honestly is I find it a really foundational or fundamental reason to keep practicing, because I get up almost every day and think, I don't want to do it. And it's not even really a thought. It's just, it's sort of a mental, physical, spiritual, sticky mess of something like that. And the one thing that that gets me off the dime to actually come in, sit down, do bows, do whatever practice I'm doing, is that thought, okay, it's not for me. Okay, I'm not doing this for myself. I'm not doing this to be a better person. I'm not doing this to be physically fit. I'm not doing this to be enlightened. I'm not, any of that. It's just not for me. It's for all beings. And that, I'm serious about that. That can work. That does work. And ultimately, there's not much else there's not another direction in life that I've found that is as sustaining as that. So thank you for your talk about practice. It's a good time. It's a good reminder, especially around New Year's. We're all just coming out, a bad year. We're coming out of the holidays as much as we can celebrate them. Generally a time of excess, a time of giving ourselves a break, sort of coasting along. So I appreciate your bringing it up and just laying it out there for us. So yeah, thank you for that. So does anybody have any questions?
Hi, this is Jane. I have a question. Since you've taken or gotten Inca, could you explain what Dharma combat is?
Well, Dharma combat is testing your mind, testing your practice in a real living situation. I know some people may be put off by the term combat, the sort of martial aspects of it. But the metaphor, the image that Descend's name often used to use was, two people wielding swords, very quick, very fast, no time to think, you simply have to react. You simply have to parry. You simply have to respond. But really, that sounds like a confrontational situation, but really that's a way that we come together. It's a way that we connect. It's a genuine living in the moment connection between your mind, my mind, in that moment. And when, so most of us in that situation, we're frightened. we're scared. We're worried about a lot of things. We're worried about looking dumb. We're worried about not being able to answer questions because everybody knows in this life you're supposed to know what's going on, and that you got this idea that you're the only person that doesn't, and everybody else seems to be doing all right, and somehow I'm going to be revealed for the fraud that I am in this situation. And that's quite a big hump to get over. But everybody feels that. Everybody goes through that. You may walk into it thinking, well, my practice has been so bad lately, and now it's going to be apparent. now somebody's going to know that I just haven't been a good Zen student. And there's probably infinite varieties of this kind of insecurity, but we all bring it in there. So what we really need to do is trust. We really, it really takes trust to do this. It's really, in some sense, a leap of faith that we're going into that situation with our eyes wide open. To really, as Steve said, touch this don't know. Really touch it, really experience it. And what we think, since we're unable to answer, since we're so wrapped up in ourselves, we think of don't know as being threatening, as being somehow, I don't know, null and void, as being annihilation, as being emptiness, nothing, which is kind of a scary concept. But honestly, it's us. It is our birthright. It is our essential human nature. So Dharma combat is I think, particularly effective method of just putting you in that moment and stripping away all of everything else. And just saying, bam, only that. And putting you in touch with that. It's putting you in touch with yourself. It's putting you in touch with your true nature. So Bobby Rhodes and Master Song Yang, she's always banging right down here in her belly, saying, trust this, trust this, trust this. And that's really what it takes. Now, we've all been in situations in our lives where we haven't had time to think about a reaction and we've reacted, So that's how I tend to, I guess I still tend to think of Dharma combat that way. You can hem and haw, you can temporize, but best is, just hit, come one, answer, bang. So most of us, myself included, we like to sit there and go, okay, okay, maybe it's this. That's that kind of mind. But again, it's like this dragon mind, this tiger mind, just really leap out there in that moment and do it. That's the ideal, I suppose, the way I conceive of it. And it is a really rare opportunity that this happens to you in life, or that you're in this situation in life for your own benefit, and also for the benefit of everyone all around you. Oftentimes when you feel like you're exposed like that, it's humiliating, and maybe somebody's doing it to you on purpose, so we're all living with that. But it's a genuine opportunity to touch something that most people never get a chance to do in their lives. So, over the years, I've just developed a real appreciation for people's willingness to keep at it, because this takes years. It can take years. It might just take like that. Maybe you're like the sixth ancestor and suddenly, bang, it happens. But everybody has those moments in their life. I think it's just natural because it is our essential nature. And learning to trust that is, I think, the foundation of Dharma combat, and learning to trust yourself, learning to trust don't know. Does that help? Any other questions?
I have a question. This is kind of a beginner's question, I think. How do you, it's a technical question as well. How do you do 108 prostration bows with a kesa on? I don't know is is it part of the just learning how to manage it, but it just gets in the way, and I'm afraid I'm gonna put my knee on it or my hand on it or something, or so I just don't use the queso when I do the 108 bows, but I would like to. I think the the robe is the Dharma. So I like wearing it, but and then it seems awkward to put it on after I've done the 108 prostration vows to go ahead and do the chanting. So is there some sort of trick that others have learned to manage that as you're bowing with the case on?
Um, for years and years, Zen Master Sung San's practice was doing 500 bows every day. And he'd get up and do that early in the morning, and then he'd do 400, and then he'd do another 108 with with everybody at practice. So it happened that he was in town leading a retreat one time, and I was his attendant. And part of being the job of attendant for him at that time was frying 2 eggs for him. He was diabetic, and he needed the protein, and so part of the attendant's job was after bows to fry him up 2 eggs real quick and take them to him in his room. So I did that, and I knocked on the door and I opened it, and he said, come on in. And I opened the door, and he's in there in his gray nylon underwear, bowing. And that was, and he didn't stop. He just pointed to where I was supposed to put him down. I put him down, bowed out, and left. But that image stayed with me for a long time. When I bow by myself, when I'm bowing, to maybe do extra bows or just doing it separately or doing it alone, since we're all separated these days, I generally just bow in a t-shirt and something loose. I don't wear it. We do wear it when, as you know, when we're practicing together, and it's certainly laudable that you feel that connection to it, to wear it while you're bowing. And part of it is just learning, how it falls, how it drapes, where it's going to land when you land, where your knees are, and so on and so forth. I'm not sure there's a trick to it. If you're a Dharma teacher, you have that nice sash, so when you're bowing and prostrating during chanting, it's out of the way. But then you got to deal with the robe. I'm just trying to remember. When we bow all together, at the Zen Center, before practice begins, we don't wear the kasa. We're just bowing in our short robes, and then we just take a break, go out, and if you have Dharma teacher robes, put those on. If you have short robes, and then you put the kasa on. So you can certainly wear it while you're bowing if you want to, but you're right, it is awkward, especially doing 108 bows. I suppose my advice would be, unless you're feeling like you're somehow not being authentic by not wearing it when you bow, is just try it with your short robe and see how that goes. And you might just wear it to sort of practice, because you will be wearing it when we bow during chanting, and otherwise it's not going to be a problem for you. I don't think that, well, I really don't know, but I don't imagine that most people who do a lot of bows are, as a practice, are wearing their robe and kasa the whole time they do that. So I'm not sure that helps, but you're right, it is awkward to do that with a kasa on, especially 108 bows. So again, I guess I'd recommend just trying it without the kasa. Just have it laying nearby, have it folded nearby, and then when you're done bowing, you can just sit down if you're going to sit or chant or whatever you do, and then put it on. That's essentially what we do at the Zen Center during regular daily practice. Does that help? Okay. Any other questions?
Can you say something about creating an altar in your practice space in the spirit of the quantum school?
Um, well, sure. I have a little altar, separate from the main altar in the Dharma room. Basically, I have a Buddha on it. Uh, a friend of mine made me an altar cloth, which was a wonderful gift. So I have that laid down. And you may have, I have some things on there that are important to me that I've had for a long time, some of them that are significant. And if you have things like that, or maybe pictures or someone that you care about that you might want to put on an altar, you could do that also. So, I've got a Buddha image. I've got the altar cloth for my little personal altar. I don't burn incense. I don't have water offering or rice offering or anything like that, like we would have on a formal altar. And actually, I don't even have candles. I just have this focal point that I have in front of me when I'm bowing and when I'm practicing on my own. I'm not sure there's a quantum school guide manual, requirement for doing your own personal altar. You can see between Zen Master Bonhei and Zen Master He Kwang, the little altar there in their Dharma, well, in their downstairs Dharma room, I guess. And that's what, is that Kwanzaa Bosal in the middle behind you? Yeah. So that's an option also. I have an image of Jijang Bosal because I've always felt an affinity with Jijang Bosal. I have no idea why, but I've had an image of Jijang Bosal for many years, and that's important to me. I think what's most important is that you set it up in a way that's significant to you, that is someplace that you feel comfortable with, and that it's someplace you can use. Because it does, how to say it, in some sense, it does create an environment or a sacred space, a spot, someplace set aside for what you're actually doing. And whatever it takes for you in order to create that, I think that's certainly well within the realm of possibility. So, do you have an altar? Do you have any space that you've got set up, or?
I do.
You do. Do you think it's not adequate? Is that what you're asking, or do you think?
No, I'm just kind of, well, my husband, actually what brought this up was he buys little metal, he makes glass and he presses glass into metal. So he bought this little Buddha and I found it the other day. I was like, ooh, maybe I could like just start creating these little altars in like the little corners of my house, and every time I walk by, like, oh, this, because he has these little, so I don't know, it just arose to me. But yes, I do have an altar.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like I'd say do it. I like the idea. So for a long time, I had a habit of picking up a rock if I was someplace significant, just a rock or a pebble or something like that. So I've got a whole box of them, and I actually I took them to Australia. I brought them back, and they're on a table up here in the upstairs, the multi-purpose room at the Zen Center. And I've just set up little stupas, with these rocks, and they set them up, they fall down, set them up and fall down, but they've got meaning to me, and it's not really. It's sort of a practice, and for me, it's sort of a good reminder of impermanence. Rocks you think of as pretty solid and pretty stable and pretty static, but you stack them up and they're pretty unstable and unstatic, like life, and they fall down. So I like that, and that's just in another place. It's not on the altar; it's just in another spot. And I've got a few other things, other places around this. Around the Zen Center here in my room like that, with just significant objects like that. I don't see any reason not to. My daughter gave me a whole box of little plastic Hotai, the fat jolly Buddha figures. They're, I don't know about that tall, years and years ago for Christmas. And, for a long time, my habit was to leave one of those someplace, that for some reason had some significance, or with somebody just as sort of a little surprise or something like that. It's just kind of part of the mysteriousness of life for me, you know. So your husband's finding these things someplace and bringing them home. Yeah, where do these come from? How did they come? You know, how did this all come together and somehow end up at your house? You know, and you're using it as, you know, this Buddha image. I personally like that very much. So, yeah, I'd say that's a great thing to do. Maybe one more question if anybody has another question.
Could you say more about bowing as practice?
Well, yeah, I love bowing as practice personally. That's always been my favorite part of practice. When I was younger, it was a pretty macho thing, you know. Oh, I'm gonna do a million bows and blah blah blah, that sort of thing. We're all humbled as we get older, as Steve said, because you know, you just physically can't do that kind of thing anymore. But one thing that's always attracted to me to practice, and one thing that I always appreciated about Zen Master Sung San's teaching, anytime I asked him about something, some problem or some difficulty or some situation I was trying to fix or resolve or work through or something, he would give me something to do. You know, he wouldn't offer me sort of vague advice about, well, become one with it or put it all down or anything like that. He'd say something like, oh, you do 500 bows, or yeah, you do this chant, you know, for 49 days, or this, that, or the other, or you're with somebody dying, you chant the Heart Sutra with them in Korean, you know. So it goes straight to their center, goes right past their mind, goes straight to their center. You know, he says, this will help people, this will help you, this will help people. So bowing has always been like that. I think there's not much you can make out of it. You know, the simple physical act, down on your knees, head on the floor, hands up, back up, upright, down, up and down, up and down, up and down. It's boring, it's repetitive, it's hard, it's just, there's just not too much that you can turn it into, I think, if you're actually doing it. You know, if you have this idea, I'm going to be a great Zen student because I'm doing 500 bows a day, you quickly get disabused of that, because then you're just doing 500 bows a day and somehow great Zen student kind of goes out the window. It's like, oh, geez, I got to do 400 more bows. So it's kind of humbling in that sense. And it also, I think, brings you back to your center in a way that maybe, I don't really want to say other aspects of practice don't, but it requires an effort that it really does show you, you know, this whole mind, your mind is your head is a dragon, your tail is a snake, I think. I knew someone once who was going to go do a 100-day retreat and do 3,000 bows a day, and he lasted a week. You know, and that was that. So I think bowing is a very good way to sort of work through that, you know, that idea, because so often those sorts of heroic efforts, I think, are about me. You know, I'm strong, I'm a good Zen student. And again, it sort of circles around to what I was saying to begin with here, that it is hard. You know, you start off with that burst of enthusiasm. Oh, I'm going to do these extra bows, and maybe you do that for a while, but the motivation after a while is just worn away by the actual physical act of doing bows. And then something else has to happen. You know, what keeps you going? You know, maybe willpower keeps you going for a while, but willpower again is about me. I'm doing this. I'm going to power through this. So I guess bottom line is, what I find useful about bows is that in some sense it's humbling, and that it really does force you to confront your motivation. You know, why am I doing this? if this is just for me, if I'm just trying to be some sort of Dharma athlete, maybe that's not so good, and maybe that's not so sustainable. But I really do think it's one of the best practices for clearing up emotional difficulties, which we all have. I think it's very effective dealing with that. I think it's a very effective way to deal with what Zen Master Sung San used to call, what did he call it? Not clinging, can't think of the word. Recurring hindrances, you know, these sort of themes that go through all our lives that just keep cropping up and cropping up and cropping up. I think it's a very effective way to deal with that. But bottom line is, you have to do it. So so bottom line is you have to do it. So if you're not doing it, give it a try. See how it works for you. See what happens. Might surprise you. Okay, so it's 11:30, so I guess we'll have announcements now. And thank you all very much for your practice and for being here together. Thank you.